Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Podcast Unflooded. Today, we have another very special guest, Brando, here. Do you want to introduce yourself and your content for those that might be unfamiliar?
I'm Brando. I make a lot of content on YouTube. Mostly what I do is a lot of shorts revolving around Majora's Mask, and we've been dabbling in Ocarina of Time now. And I do a lot of live streams and long form videos, and we usually kind of cover like maybe like theory, some lore, some secrets and oddities, like the big series right now. So that's pretty much my content. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you do like top 10 videos. I saw your rankings of the mini bosses recently.
Yes, yeah. So I've been doing that. A lot of people request like what my thoughts and opinions are about things, and like typically you look at a top 10, you're like those lists are kind of lame. But for me, it gives me like an opportunity to like examine everything in a game and then put all my thoughts on about it, so people can like discuss one in the comments. And I have like a Discord, and we're always talking about like how things are. And so I mean, I absolutely love. So we did a top 10 of all the bosses on the N64 because I kind of like compared Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. I feel like they're so similar. You might as well compare them both at the same time. It's like comparing oracles, of ages to seasons, stuff like that. You could even do Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, which is a different conversation. So we did a ranking of that, and we also did a ranking of all the mini bosses as well. And that one just came out. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. I guess I do want to ask like how you got started in making videos and content, and it seems like with Zelda, like you were talking about, you kind of specifically have a focus on those N64 games. I'm just kind of curious
Yeah.
how you found that niche.
Well, I mean, you want to go back to early influencers. I used to love the video game nerd way back in the day. You sometimes called the Nintendo nerd. And yeah, James Rob's a cool guy. I even spoke to him on a couple of occasions. He's a really chill dude, and that kind of like influenced me to start on YouTube. I actually used to like film myself and have like a full episode and everything, and it was a lot of work. And as a filmer, I'm sure you know how much work that can absolutely be. So then I decided, like, like that's not going to be my path. I'm not the best at all of those different components when it comes to recording video, to recording audio, to all these things. So I'm like, I'm going to focus on something that I'm really good at. And that's just like weird esoteric knowledge about games, like weird little secrets, weird little oddities, things that you would never pick up on a million times. But I have, because that's the way I play a game. Like a game might tell you to drink a bottle, but I'm going to smack it against my head 20 times to see if something weird happens, because that's just the stuff I like to do. So I made a shorts and oddities channel about it, and it literally blew up overnight. So we're experiencing some pretty rapid growth, and it's cool just to like see like what people are interested in, and it's just like the weird stuff. One thing I said my channel is about lore, and I want to digress. I am not a lore guy. Low key hate lore people. Um, I feel like sometimes people that talk about lore really put like a weird negative connotation on the community. And I don't know if you've been in the Discord or just talking, like people can say one thing or one comment or something, and it just spirals out of control. And sometimes it's like a barrier to entry. You see that, and you're like, there's a whirlwind in the way of me getting into this community. I always try to stay away from those types of like, all right, guys, Link is dead theories. It's like, all right, calm down, everyone.
I totally feel that, man. I mean, I love Zelda lore. I love talking about Zelda lore. I feel
Hmm.
like, but I've totally been in those conversations as well, and I've had discussions like that on my own Discord where because I do a fan project about Wind Waker, and so I have to balance a lot of Wind Waker's lore and think
Right.
about like
Yeah.
what's the game trying to say. And sometimes I'm wrong, but like, so there are discussions like that where I'm like, I think I
Hmm.
can do this right, and then people are like, Joe, did you even pay attention to the game?
Yeah. Did you even play? Did you hear what Granny's first sentence was? And you're like, oh my god, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. No, no, totally. And those things are always coming up. Like whenever I make like a secrets oddities video, like I try to like phrase it in a way where it's open to even more interpretation. But I still have people going like, actually, if you do this, you'll see this happen. So I'm like, okay.
Well, I've tried to learn, I guess, with my own content because, like I said, it's like I'm asking for feedback. I want to know if people disagree. I'm trying to get this mindset. This is hard to do, but every time I get one of those comments, because I get them in my YouTube comments too, I'm like, all right, I'm thankful for this. They're correcting me. I want to be right, so I should listen to them. I should be thankful for that. It's just sometimes the
Right.
tone is a little bit.
So yeah, really quick question to you. Zelda Wind Waker Unflooded. Um just because you don't like the ocean?
Hey, hey, I love the ocean. I saw the Game Rant did that article that was like the ocean was a really controversial choice in the Wind Waker, so fans are finally removing it. And I'm like, that's not why I'm removing it.
Finally getting rid of the flood. No, no. Yeah, that'd actually be kind of funny. I feel like it'd be very empty. You know, like the ocean, even though it is a lot of emptiness, it does allow you from point A to point B very quickly. And like I don't know about you, but the Wind Waker HD mod, which had the quick sail, is a godsend. Love that item. So it makes the game so much more playable.
Well, I think it's purposeful because it is empty space. The ocean is, but I really do think it's purposeful, and like this is why like I don't describe my channel as a mod. I'm not really trying to fix the game. I'm just trying to be creative and make a world that I thought was missing. But like the original game, like I love that the Wind Waker has like you have these islands which with very focused gameplay, and
Hmm.
then to get them there's more broad gameplay. So it's like the traveling across large space is less specific, less focused, and then it's like all right, we get to the island, then there's a platform challenge, then there's a dungeon, and I think just that's part of the pace of the game, and I think it works.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. Man, I'm just thinking about the visuals to Wind Waker. Like, man, when that game first came out, everyone was raging on that game, and now looking back, it's like one of my favorites. I love the way it looks.
It's a beautiful game. Every time I look
Hmm.
at it, like I always expect, because I love going back to like old games and my childhood
Right?
games, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this. I remember this looking great. Does it still look great? And Wind Waker is one of the few that really does. I guess I'm curious how you feel about like the N64 games. I recently beat Ocarina of Time over
Hmm.
like the holidays, and to me, it's like every time I go back to it, I feel the same way, but it looks different to me. It looks older. I guess I'm curious how you feel about that.
I mean, so having been in that position where I've played most of all the games as they've released, Ocarina of Time really is the gold standard. And like, it, it's so hard to say because it was the first game transition to 3D, and it was that first real big game that took basically all the best elements of Link to the Past, which Link to the Past was a masterpiece on the Super Nintendo, and they just reinvigorated, rebooted it, made it for the N64, and I think they nailed the formula. There's 8 dungeons. You go through. There's a crazy time mechanic, which had never really been done before in gaming, and like a lot of people are just like, "Oh my god!" There's the epic reveal of Sheik, who you thought was like some like guy. Everyone in the game says it's a guy, and it's like, boom, it's actually Zelda. Like that big reveal is so epic. And if you compare that to like every other Zelda game in history, and especially like the influence of Ganondorf, how he came over and took everything, it is the quintessential story. Every other story has been very different, very wild, you know. Whereas Ocarina of Time, I feel, has been like the core pillars of which the Zelda franchise has been built on. And that's very interesting. Now in the current era of Zelda, we're kind of going in a unique direction where there aren't 8 dungeons, right? There's not like the hook shot and the bomb and the bow that you get as a special item. Those are just items you just pick up on the ground, you know, and that's a very different version of Zelda. And I'm interested to see where they go from here. A lot of people are thinking, well, this is the new direction. We're only going to be doing open world Zelda type concepts. Get ready for this type. And that's why like Breath of the Wild was more or less a copy paste of the game engine into Tears of the Kingdom. So like they are the same engines, and you don't often see that. I think the only other times you've seen that was, like I said, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, one of those very rare instances. And so some of the Game Boy games, like for example, Oracle's Ages and Seasons, were built on the same engine, and they went over. Though it's interesting that Zelda does have a history of porting games from different consoles. If you recall, Breath of the Wild was on Wii U. I played it on Wii U. I thought it was a masterpiece on Wii U. So many people hated it because like, no, 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 you need the better graphics and load times on the Switch, which granted it has, but the Wii U has a gamepad that allows you to have an interactive menu to play at all times. Like I don't need to hit pause and pause my gameplay. I can do it on the fly. I'm like,
Hmm.
this is sick, you know? Like, so I don't know. It's pretty interesting, but yeah.
I love that answer because I guess I fell in love. I fell in love with Ocarina of Time every time I play it, and I played it as a kid. And everything that you said about like why the game still holds up, I absolutely feel that. There are things about the game that have aged, and I try to show it to my friends, and they're like, whether it's the graphics or the controls, there are things that hold them back. But like the
Oh yeah.
design philosophies, like you said, that like are still a part of the game, those things still work. The dungeons are still fun. The items are still fun. Like the design is still good. And I absolutely agree that like with the future of the series in mind, um, Like I don't think it's all going in one direction. I think there's a little bit of like going forward and then coming back. I felt like when Breath of the Wild came out, it felt like they'd done Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and then they kind of came back to Wind Waker's ideas and kind of
Hmm.
revamped it into Breath of the Wild and with certain like gameplay ideas and how open world and freeform it is and push that further. So like the development of Zelda is a little bit forward, back, and so I don't think it's all going forward.
Did you ever play the remake of Link's Awakening?
The yes, I did. Yeah, on the Switch.
Dude, loved that game. My girlfriend and I played that game and we absolutely adored it because like it like looks fun, but they kept the core like grid, like that's something so unique that like not many people are doing. No one's going like, hey, remember that game we released in the 80s? Let's make it like almost one for one today, but with great graphics. No one does that. And in my opinion, it was an absolute hit. They redid all the music and it was just so emotional playing through it again. And I really do hope they do that. A lot of people in my comments in my Discord and I hear members online are talking about that there is a Zelda game being remade, not a game just being made, but remade. And a lot of people are like, well, what's it going to be? Is it going to be the Oracle's games? A lot of people want the Oracle's games, and like I totally get it. It fits the Link's Awakening formula. I think that'd be very quick to pop out. The engine's already there, but a lot of people are saying it's going to be Ocarina of Time remake. Which, can you imagine an Ocarina of Time remake? Like, I have so many concerns about what an Ocarina of Time remake should be. Because like if you do a one-to-one remake, we've already had that. If you look at the 3DS, that was a very faithful remake. The only real difference is like the frame rate was changed, so Link's rolling animation and animations in general just look slightly different. And they changed like some minor things, which were just basically adding content and going to the 1.2 release. Ocarina of Time had different releases from 1.0 to 1.1 to 1.2, depending on whether you're playing in NTSC or in Japan or in Europe. But they used the most modern version, which means they took out all of the temple chanting and whatnot. And like those are minor changes. Like I don't mind those changes, but it was at the end of the day a one-to-one remake. If they were to do Ocarina of Time again, I don't think it should be a one-to-one remake. I think they should take what that game is and just evolve it. And a quick question: have you ever played Resident Evil?
No.
You've never played? Wow. Okay, fantastic. Have you played Final Fantasy VII?
No.
Wow. Okay. So the only reason I bring up those games is that those two games were remade recently. Resident Evil they remade 2, 3, and 4. Final Fantasy VII remade Final Fantasy VII. It's a big deal. Maybe you've heard of them at least.
I have, and I've seen footage of like the comparisons between those and the remake. I just haven't played the games
Yeah.
myself, but I have seen the remake.
And the reason I bring those games up is when they remade their games, they were brand new experiences. Like you could play them and be like, oh yeah, I remember there was a factory, but I was like 8 years old when I played this. So it's not 100% like matching. But what they did was they modernized it in a way where you're still going through the same areas, but they're bigger, they're expanded, everything's more modernized, like they should do that with Ocarina of Time. I truly do believe if they're going to go back to that property, they already remade it once. Let's just make it a brand new experience and keep the core elements. There's still the Deku Tree. There's still Dodongo's Cavern. There's still Jabu Jabu. All these elements are there, but they're bigger. They're different. The puzzles are revamped. You're going to playing this game like you're 8 years old again saying, what do I even do here? It's coming back to you, but it's different. Oh my God, I would love that. If you could have a remake of any Zelda game, what would you want?
This is a good question because I usually don't think in terms of like if I want a complete revamp, I usually expect a new experience out of that. But I think you're absolutely right that Ocarina of Time's like I think about the story, I think about like just like the quest that you're on. It's like it's worth preserving that with a new experience. I think that's a really great idea. I've been really happy with the Zelda remakes. Really, it's just like I want them to be available. Like
Mm-hmm.
the GameCube games aren't like on the Switch, and I want people to be able to play those for
Yeah.
Wind Waker, Twilight Princess.
Yeah, TP. Yeah, that game too. And that game was on the Wii.
Yeah.
I don't like talking about the Wii version of Twilight Princess. That was a bad game. I don't know if you
I
ever
mean, I
played
grew
it.
up with the GameCube version, and I don't
Yeah.
know, like seeing footage of like the map being flipped, that throws me off every time.
I'm just talking about using the Joy-Con. Like you have a Joy-Con and to cut grass, you're just like shaking it the whole time.
Oh
It's
no.
like, what are you doing? And like the if you ever used the motion controls of the Wii or the Wii U,
Yeah, for the Wii, yeah.
yeah. So in Twilight Princess, your sword movement was horrible.
Oh
Like
no.
it didn't connect at all. You would shake it anywhere, and Link would just be like the laziest slashes. And I think that really sucked because in Skyward Sword, if you played that game, I think they knocked it out of the park with Wii Motion Plus. But because like whichever way you would move your sword, that's the way Link would move his sword, and it was so accurate. And like this is amazing, but they're not going to go that way again. And like that's another thing I want to bring up about Nintendo is that they tend to do things in like short bursts, and we're like new idea, new idea, new idea. You know, whether it be the Mii Motion Plus, the Wii U gamepad, now with Breath of the Wild, it's kind of like it's honestly it reminds me so much of like maybe Roblox or Minecraft or just like this open expansion world idea. Like I don't know if they're going to keep going that way, and I hope they don't. I hope they totally revamp what Zelda's going to do next.
I expect that they will. Like that if I'm placing bets, I mean obviously I think there's ideas that will carry over, like and there's things I want to carry over and like there's things I critique about these new Switch Zelda games. For the record, like I really love like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but there's things about those formulas I don't want Nintendo to keep.
Mm,
But I do hope like I loved like the fuse system in Tears of the Kingdom, like being able to use all your materials in combat.
mhm.
I want that to stay around, for instance. But I mean, yeah, I don't expect it to be another one of those games. I think it'll be a new art style, hopefully a new world. These are my hopes. I guess I'd
Mm.
like to extend that question as well. Like with the future of Zelda in mind, where do you hope this series will go in the future?
Quirky. I want Link to be the conductor of his own choo-choo train again. I want there to be a spirit Zelda flying around. I want some weird stuff. You know, Tingle had a dating simulator game. We need to bring back those games. Where's Gruce's game? Where is Gruce? That's what I want.
Where is
No,
Gruz?
no, but like that's what I really want. Like I loved that era of Nintendo where they would just pop out random games. Like you remember that on like the 3DS and like random Nintendo Wii games, Link's archery game. Like I want more of just weird stuff like Crypt of the Necro Dancer with that Zelda version. That's incredible. Like I love all of that stuff. Like I don't need a main AAA title smashing it out of the park every single time. You can just give me something dumb, you know? Like let's put a balloon on Tingle's back and have him fly through space, like whatever you want. Like um that's what my answer would be. But if you're talking about a main entry game, um man, I would love just something weird, just something different, you know. Like I don't want another Tears of the Kingdom, I don't want another Breath of the Wild right now. I want something smaller, more personalized, something that's going to stick with you, maybe that's going to make people mad, you know, like make it controversial, you know, like some people are like I can't even fuse, you know, like you were saying, like but like that's what I would want.
I think that's great. I totally agree with spin-offs. I love the Hyrule Warriors games, for instance. I
Hmm.
thought those were great. I'd love for them just to experiment more because I think Nintendo likes experimenting, and they don't have to do that in the mainline game. I'd love to like see new different styles, especially for
Hmm.
Zelda. Um, yeah, I guess I'm just curious about where to go next, but I do think, like you said, it's going to be controversial. I think no matter what, I think no matter what they do, if they go back to the old formula in any way, it's going to be controversial, even if it's what people are asking for.
Hmm.
And if they go somewhere new, even if it's like a good change, it will be controversial. It's the series is just that big.
Yeah, that tends to happen. It's interesting because in some series they don't innovate as much. Like for example, you think of Mario Kart. Mario Kart has remained pretty steady, aside from like Double Dash or something. Mario Kart's just been Mario Kart. You're racing around, very similar ideas. You go forward, and there's not much controversy to be had there. Whereas like other games that they make, sometimes they change them so drastically, like Zelda, for example, where they're going in so many different directions. At, you have different pockets of fan bases, and uniting them all in under one game banner is really hard at that point. Like I don't know if there is a Zelda game that would make everyone happy right now.
I don't think so. And I don't say that like negatively because I think Nintendo
Yeah.
can still make good games, obviously, and I think Zelda can still make great games. I think it has been. It's just it's not going to please everyone. So I guess like no matter what, I do hope I like what you just said. That's part of what I love about Zelda is that it changes and iterates with each
Hmm.
game. So I hope that that continues into the future. That's all I'm asking for. I guess I am curious. I have some other questions. I'm supposed to be asking you questions.
Oh yeah, we're just chilling, man.
Yeah. How about this? I don't know if I asked this specifically. We've talked about different Zelda games that you've covered. I don't know if I asked you specifically what your favorite Zelda game is.
Tough question. Changes with the win. I don't know if I ever had a favorite all-time Zelda game. Um, it's just about how I feel at the moment. When I was actively playing through Breath of the Wild, I remember thinking this is the best game ever. No game is going to top this. But then I 100%ed Breath of the Wild. I did all the content. I did it again on master mode. And after like playing it a couple of times, I'm like, I changed my mind. It's not my favorite anymore. Like it just my opinions changed because just because it feels amazing at the moment, having that knowledge of the whole entire history of all the games, it's very unique. So I don't know if I'd have the favorite because that's such a personal question. Are you asking like favorite as in which one do I like right now the most, or which one do I think is the best? Or the question is which one would I recommend as someone who's never played Zelda? That's such a loaded question.
And they're all different questions. Like, to be fair, I totally agree. I mean, because I have different answers to those questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think Twilight Princess is a better game than Wind Waker, but I prefer Wind Waker more, for different reasons. So,
Mm-hmm.
how about that? I'll ask you all three of those questions then. Which one do you think is the best? Which one do you prefer? And which one would you recommend?
All right. Which one do I think is the best? Ocarina of Time, hands down. There is no discussion. I mean, it is the quintessential Zelda experience. You go through it, you get the story of time. You meet Link and Zelda and Ganondorf in their most iconic forms. That's all there is to it. You learn about an adventure of a young man and what it means to be courageous in the light of demons and evil and literal gods going against you. And you're just a little kid who was abandoned whose mother died. You were abandoned as a child. And you just take on the world with what? Courage? What the heck does courage do? I can't blast wisdom beams. I can't turn into a demon. It's relentlessness. It's the idea that you just keep going and nothing's going to stop you. I think it's the perfect story. Now, which game do I think is my personal favorite? That's a tough one. I think probably Majora's Mask. I like the personality of MM. There is nothing quite like it. A lot of games have, a lot of what I would call breadth, like Breath of the Wild. It's a very wide game, and there's a lot of things, but they're just surface level. There's not much really to analyze. They're very, oh, this is this character, this is what they represent. This is this town. Here's the people inside. In Majora's Mask, because you have a 3-day cycle, you get to see how characters change and react throughout time and how they interact to different like situations. And when that happens, you don't get breadth, you get depth. And it is an incredibly deep game to a point where no other game is made. A lot of people are like talking about if it had been 5 days or 7 days. 3 days is already an insanely complicated game. I can't tell you how many thousands of hours I've done just talking to everyone and going to everyone and speaking with the translator. Bill Trennan actually translated the game, and someone else localized it. And hearing what they had to say about the amount of lines and depth, and even the language differences, like between like Japanese, French, German, and English, how they had to differentiate what certain things meant. Like it's fascinating, and like no game has reached that level for me. So for those reasons, that's my personal favorite, just because of that just level of heart and just like it utter dread that everything's going to end in 3 days. And it's arguable whether you even save it in the end, because at the end of Majora's Mask, when you leave, Termina ceases to exist, according to many sources. So there's a lot of like weird emotions that go on with that game. No other game has come close to that. Now, if I was recommending one to someone, if they're like a kid, here's Tears of the Kingdom. Have fun. Go play the most modern one. You're gonna be a fan. It's gonna be all modernized. It's gonna be great. If you're a little bit older, I would recommend the remake of Link's Awakening. I think that is, it gets me in my heart. That's the one I'd recommend. It's easy. It's fun. It's easy. You can pick it up. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Those are good recommendations. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about because I have a friend who's like getting into Zelda games, and he watched me when I was playing Oracle of Ages, and he was like, I was getting stuck, and he was like, "Well, let me try. Let me see if I can figure it out." And then from there, we started passing the controller back and forth, beat Oracle of Ages, did seasons, did Minish Cap, and I've been trying to show him the 3D games, and he's just been a little resistant to it. Um,
Mm.
and like he plays modern games, but like I don't know. We started with Ocarina of Time, and I think he felt like the controls were just kind of dated. Um, I showed him Breath of the Wild, and I think he just felt a little lost. Those are my interpretations. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I want him to keep playing Breath of the Wild and see what he thinks. But he's been really into the 2D games, and we played the
Mm-hmm.
remake of Link's Awakening, and he was just really into that. So I think that's a great recommendation.
Yeah, right. I mean, you just look at it, it's colorful, it's popping, the music is so upbeat and just they're all every tune is a banger. Like I make a lot of like videos and I'm always looking for music of like what's the best Zelda soundtracks. And Link's Awakening is just upbeat hit after upbeat hit. Like you're playing these, you're like, okay, this is good, you know? And so yeah, I'm really impressed with that game. Music is such an important part of the game. Like when you get the sale and you're in Wind Waker and that music just starts going, and you're just going over the ocean, like that's one of the best feelings in gaming. I think Zelda nails that sense of adventure because that's what it is. Like you have to want to adventure. The music has to be good, and that's the thing about Breath of the Wild. I guess there is no music. Okay, there's one guy in the piano who's like, "Watch this." Everyone's like, amazing, incredible, you know, like they love the three notes in the piano, and that's what a lot of the newer games are. It's is music through space, the silence, this sense of openness, and you know it's very different. And I love personally going through the different composers of Nintendo games, especially the Zelda games, because they have such an influence on the game. Like there are so many tracks that are shared between Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks and like that air, and even Minish Cap, a lot of them are from the same composer, and it's just so interesting to see that and hear that. Be like, wow, like you can hear how different types of music influences the feel of a game, and like that's so important. Um, it honestly is like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. A lot of those songs are pretty dreadful. I mean, there's some good ones in there, but their highlight tracks are just kind of like ominous and like just creepy and just kind of foreboding. Like this is not a good place. You know, this is a tough time for the hero of time, and that it's very different. You know.
Ocarina of Time has a really diverse soundtrack, right? Because the
Hmm.
dungeon themes, like you said, are super ominous, especially. But then it
Yeah.
has Hyrule Field, and then it
Oh
has
yeah.
like the, Ocarina songs themselves, and those are all a little bit more upbeat. But really diverse game. I think that's part of why it holds up for me whenever I play it.
Hmm.
I feel the same way with Twilight Princess when I play it. I always think to myself, I'm amazed that all of this is still in the same game. That's the thought
Mm-hmm.
that kind of clicks in my head. But with both of those games, just because the adventure takes you so far and just such different places.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I started questioning reality when I started snowboarding in Twilight Princess. I'm like, is this real? What's going on here?
That's a crazy. I always forget that there's snowboarding in that game.
Yeah, it's so random. They're like, we're gonna make a serious Zelda game, and then like by the end of the game, you're snowboarding, and you're like, what?
I definitely think there's a. I don't want to call it a misunderstanding, but like people call it this realistic Zelda game. Even same with
Mm-hmm.
Ocarina of Time a little bit. Both of those games are more cartoonish, I think, than I don't think than they pretend to be, but then certain fans, than the way that they appear in their heart. And I think it's okay for that to be different, right? Sometimes a game makes us feel differently than what it
Mm-hmm.
actually is. And I don't know exactly why. I want to do research on that phenomenon, but I think part of that is like you want the story of the developers rubber banding after Wind Waker and making something super serious. And some of it's dark and serious, but not all of it is, and it's still stylized in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that. I'd say the darkest games are most definitely Majora's Mask is a very dark game. Twilight Princess has elements of darkness in it. Some things are goofy, but like a lot of it is darker. Let's see. I would even say that Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 are pretty dark and grim. Those games start at a time where everything's gone down, you know, the rabbit hole of death, and you're just trying to like resist what's happening with Ganon. There's not a lot of helpful people or players. Like it feels like a dead world, and but to me, those games always felt really dark.
I think because of that, right? It's missing the towns, and this is something when you were talking about Majora's Mask and all the dialogue, I started thinking about. Um, Arguably, like Ocarina of Time's Kakariko Village reaches these heights too, but I think Majora's Mask with Clock Down was the first game to me, like in the Zelda series, that really nailed like a sense of a town with all these
Hmm.
people that were going different places that wanted different things. And that's I realized I didn't play Majora's Mask for a long time. I didn't have it growing up, but I played it recently. I'm still playing it now. I haven't beaten it yet. But to me, that's what stood out to me because it's those great towns. That's one of my favorite parts of Zelda. That's what I love about Windfall Island and Wind Waker.
Yeah, I
Um,
was literally about to say that. Like that town is alive with presence. I totally feel that.
hmm I think there's direct lineage there
Hmm.
between those games and the way that they're developed, and I think that's something that the new games are still missing. It's like it's back to being empty again. It's like, well, I want to be a part of this community. I want to help people and do these side quests here,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really have a place for that.
So you asked me what kind of game I'd want next in the series, and like this is not one I don't think would do well, but this is what I would personally want is I would like a sequel to Majora's Mask. I don't want it to be Interminate necessarily. It can be. I don't want it to be an exact copy of Majora's Mask. I just want that concept again, where impending doom is happening in 3 days. You have so much time to interact with these characters on such a deep emotional level over this period of time, and what you can do in that period of time. There was an interview with Aonuma and Koizumi when they were talking about this game, and when they remade Majora's Mask 3DS, he was quoted as saying, like, a lot of Nintendo products are copied. We look at Mario 64 or Samus or most Zelda games. There are a million copiers out there. Like whenever we come up with an idea, someone copies us for money, and that's just how it is. Um, innovation breeds imitation. So he was almost gutted when he did 3DS. He was saying, like, I'm really surprised that no one copied our idea. Like, no one's done this. Like, there's never been a game like that. And he almost said it in a way that he felt like really ashamed by it. But like, it just goes to show like how crazy of an idea it really is. Like, no one's ever done that before. A time traveling multi-day mechanic where you're just involved with these characters time after time. I think it's very interesting.
Hmm. Well, I think about like complexity as well, like because with different Zelda games, there's different mechanics that are easier to copy. I mean, I think about like Wind Waker sailing. Like, there's several ocean games where like it's easy to move like
Mm-hmm.
like in a direction. I don't know. I'm not a game developer, but I assume that that's not hard. But stuff like a 3 day cycle where different things happen on different games, there's a complexity of development there that would make it harder to copy. I think that has more to do with it than anything else. Even though like it is a great mechanic to play, it's something you would want to copy, but it's just harder to. I think Tears of the Kingdom's gonna run into that too, and I hope that they don't feel that way about it because I love its new mechanics. I love Ultra Hand, I love Fuse, and I hope other games imitate Fuse, especially in some way, because I love what that adds to combat. But it may be hard for them to. I think those are games that will be harder to imitate. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
they will.
no.
Maybe someone will try.
I mean, I'm a developer. I've done some game development, and I mean, it is complicated. Uh, a lot of people like to point out the fact that Majora's Mask was made in about a year. So you talk about complexity. I mean, how complex could it really have been? But it really was a miracle. Majora's Mask was a Hail Mary throw. Do you know the story at all of how the development cycle went?
No, other than the time. All I know is that
So
it was rushed.
Ocarina of Time came out, mega smash. Everyone loved it. At this point in time, Miyamoto, who was the head director, he's like, "Listen, we're going to do something really quick right after. We're going to release Ocarina of Time Master Quest. That's the plan." And Master Quest had been done before. Other games had done it. It just having the original game, but with remix dungeons. That's all they wanted. So he went to Aonuma. Aonuma was the lead dungeon designer, and he's like, "Listen, you need to make these new dungeons." And he's like, "I'm on it. I got you, fam." So he starts making these, but for whatever reason, he gets distracted, and he makes 4 brand new dungeons. And a brand new game idea. And he comes to Miyamoto. He's like, "Miyamoto-san, I'm so sorry. I know you wanted me to remake Ocarina of Time dungeons, but instead, look at these." And they're brand new dungeons. Miyamoto's like, "These are cool dungeons. I like these, but it's not Ocarina of Time." And he's like, "I know." And he's like, "Can I make my own game?" And Miyamoto's like, "I asked you to make one game, and you spent all this time working, and you got me another game. Now we're already well in the development time. Fine, you have 1 year remaining." And he gets to work, and it's actually a wild story about how I actually made a video about this whole entire thing, and like just like the amount of pressure and issues that Aonuma went under just to like sneakily make his own game under Miyamoto's purview, and what he had to do to get it done. So he had 1 year to make it. And long story short, they barely get to the deadline. Every international version is different from Japanese to USA to German because they kept finding bugs and patches and fixes. So like they'd make it and ship it out one day, and someone would be like, "Oh, we found this huge bug." Darn. All right. Well, we have another branch to go to North America. We'll make a brand new version. So there's like sub versions with different glitches in them, which is just like really funny. And it shows just like how quickly they were churning out these copies because they had a deadline to meet. Now, infamously, of course, as soon as the GameCube came out with Wind Waker, Miyamoto's like, I still want Master Quest for Ocarina of Time. So I'm sure you know with a lot of the Wind Waker copies, it came with a OOT Master Quest version, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. I guess I love that story, and I think there's something to learn from that. I mean, I've heard like similar. It's not a similar story, but of course, like Link's Awakening was also kind of made in secret as a passion project.
Mm,
And I guess I really feel like it's like games should be made because they want to be made. And I don't know. I hate how much of a job sometimes sometimes you play a game and you're like, I can tell this was job. Sometimes I watch a movie and I'm like, I can tell this. The person that made it was asked to make it. They didn't want
mhm.
to make it. With these franchise movies, we don't have to get into that. That's a different podcast episode. But
Oh,
you
got
feel
it,
that.
got
I
it.
think we
Yeah,
all feel that.
yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I love that Zelda like is a series that I think that this is why it's popular. But it seems like it inspires, or the developers are allowed to be passionate about what they're making.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about smaller teams and how more personalized it is. I feel like with a lot of these AAA games, they're getting so big, so gigantic, so overwhelming. It's a point where you're just polishing. Like it's just so polished. Tears of the Kingdom's polished, Breath of the Wild is polished. You know, like there's just this level of corporate sheen that makes sure it's as nice and as friendly as possible. And we lose a lot of those like jaggedy edges that we had in older games, I think makes them unique, you know? Like we're not getting that Tingle dating sim anymore. Like where did that happen? What was going on in Nintendo when they greenlit that idea? Like when are we getting those games? And I feel like it's because these companies and these games are getting so big and out of hand that like they don't have enough revenue to like split into multiple minor projects. I live with that literally day to day. I understand how those discussions go. So it's it's a little disheartening.
Well, I hope it gets better, and I think it can. I don't know. I want to be optimistic, and I don't know. I think Zelda, like, I mean, you brought up the dance like game that came out. That
Yeah.
was still fairly recent, and the Hyrule Warriors games, those are still fairly recent.
Hmm.
Like, at least for Zelda, I know that those spin-offs, they're possible. They're not happening all the time. Maybe they're not as weird as we want them to be, but I think it's okay to be optimistic. I have to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll get our Goose game. I'm pretty sure.
One of these days. The Grusinator. Oh, I
Oh,
would love another shot at that.
he's coming. He's one of the and what I truly love about him, and I think why he's special. He's one of the only characters who isn't chosen. He doesn't have any powers. There's no gods looking after him. He's just a dude who started off as a jerk, turned it all around, put his ego aside, and said, "You know what? I know I'm a fly in the wall, but I'm going to annoy Ganon as much as I can to help you." We don't get that much in Zelda games, you know? And I wish we did. Just like random, interesting one-off characters in different timelines that come and step up, you know?
I totally agree. Skyward Sword is my history with the game, if I may speedrun this the story, is just I didn't like the game when it came out. The motion controls were part of it. Part of it was the
Mm,
design. It was too different from Twilight Princess. And I was like, this isn't what I wanted from a Zelda game. It's not as free as Wind Waker. Um, and for all that, it made it really hard for me to get into it. There's so much I loved. I loved the music. I loved the introduction cutscene and the story there. I was like, I like this. I love the aesthetics. I love the visuals. I'm just not having fun playing it as a game. And I think a lot of that, I mean, there's several reasons, but when the HD version came out, I was like, I want to give this another shot. Motion controls are changed. I can play it with buttons. Maybe that'll make it easier. And it made a huge difference. Part of it is that I could play it portably, and so I wasn't taking up the TV with it. I didn't feel like I was, wasting other people's time if they wanted to watch TV. And I could play it with buttons, and it was just a lot easier. And I ended up falling in love with Skyward Sword for that reason. It's just because like it had character, and the NPCs are so specific, and that's something we miss. And I think even in these new Zelda games on the Switch that have so many NPCs across the world, but they only have a small thing to do and a small thing to say, and it's missing the character that Groose had. I think about the Windfall Island NPCs and how weird and specific they are. It's like I
mhm.
want that again.
No, I totally feel that. I miss the small NPCs. Are you a fan of Paper Mario?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like a lot of the older Paper Mario games had so much just diversity and random characters that were so lush with character. And then you play some of the newer ones and it's just all toads. And you're like, what? Where's all the fun, exciting things? And I totally feel that 100%.
Yeah, I really liked Super Paper Mario. I think that's controversial in the Paper Mario fandom, but I think that's a good example of that.
I think it's controversial for me, at least, in the fact that Paper Mario, don't get me wrong, is a fantastic game. If you've never played Paper Mario before and you play Super Paper Mario, you're like, hot diggity dog, this game rocks. You know, and I think the issue is if you look at Mario as an entire series, you have Mario Bros. Mario Bros was the arcade game, and then you had Super Mario Bros. Whenever you play a Super Mario game, the game concept is this: you're going left to right, you're going to the flagpole, you're moving on, you're getting points. That's what Super Paper Mario was. It was the super version of Paper Mario. And a lot of people just saw that as a continuation of Paper Mario series because I do view a Super Paper Mario as the division point. It is no longer a turn-based RPG with fun, fantastic characters and different things. It turned into like more of like an interesting story kind of puzzler. That's the direction it kind of went in, and it's unfortunate that that division happened because at that point the RPG series had moved to Mario and Luigi for the handheld games, and that was the only RPG series, and that series kind of fizzled out and died. So Paper Mario couldn't go back to RPG mechanics anymore. So it's one of those unfortunate successes because they saw how successful Super Paper Mario was. Because and part of the reason it was so successful is because Thousand Year Door was so successful, and that's the fact you see in movies a lot. Is that like if you have a really good second movie in a trilogy, the third one is going to sell out like crazy, even if it sucks. Which we've seen that time and time and again. Third movies just sucking, but everyone has to see it because the second one was so good. That's what happened here. Thousand Year Door was so good, everyone wanted that next Paper Mario game, and it's Super Paper Mario, and Nintendo saw that and said, "This is a new direction. Sales are through the roof. We're going to continue the whole series this way." And that's when that great division kind of happened.
Hmm. I mean, it attracted a new, I think, fan base as well. Like, it feels like a different series, and I like your breakdown that, like, well, it has Super in the title. Like, in its own way, it is a different series.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's absolutely true. Let's see. Excuse me, I'm gonna put my headphone in. We're running low on time. Do you have anything you want to plug? Any new videos coming out that you want to tell the audience about?
Oh yeah, self-plug time. So right now I am working on a couple of shorts. Right, I'm doing a couple of short series. So this week we have more glitches and tricks from Majora's Mask coming up, so you get to learn some things there. Next week we're continuing the very currently popular Ocarina of Time secrets and oddities, where I go through, as you can imagine, some secrets, some oddities, in Ocarina of Time, and show them off in short format. Also, I am going to do more doppelganger videos. Doppelganger shorts are talking about characters that are the same between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. A lot of characters are recycled, but they also evolve in different ways. So I like examining those evolutions. And one of the characters that I'm making a long form video about, of course, is going to be the Happy Mask Salesman. So that is going to be a very fun video. Other big videos coming up. I'm actually doing a project with Bread coming up. So
Ooh.
that's going to be pretty fun. The Bread Pirate and I are going to be doing some Zelda shenanigans. So keep that hush hush for now, though.
I won't say a word. Now, I mean, it's public knowledge now, but I won't say a word.
Oh yeah, the public. Yeah, they're going to be spamming my DMs trying to figure out what that new video is. I can tell.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much for being on, man. Thank you so much for talking about Zelda and talking about YouTube. I have so many more questions I could ask, but I think we're wrapping it up. So, without further ado, thank you all so much for watching. I'll put links in the description to your channel so people can like and subscribe. I'm telling y'all to. But thank you so much for watching. I'll let y'all
Yeah,
go.
thanks for having me on. I'll see you all later.
See ya.